So this article is from the Uganda Investment Authority, and it is 20 hours ago. Ugandan coffee fetches record $350 per kilogram at London auction. And that coffee is by Mountain Harvest, right? Mountain Harvest. You guys know Mountain Harvest? And this is what they are fetching. Yeah? So, and I read the article, they were saying on average, a kilogram in this auction was, the average price was about 90,000 US dollars. I mean 90,000 Ugandan shillings. Yeah? So, this is to bring what makes people move from this, from where we are. Some of you, how many of you ever sold coffee above 100,000 a kilogram? Yeah? So what makes you differentiate yourself in the market, that when you're in the right market, you can begin what? Fetching such kinds of money. Yeah? It's not only enough for you to do the right product. It's also important for you to do the right product for the right market. Yes? You may find that this same coffee, if you brought it back to Kampala, no one is going to give you anything above than $100. Yeah? Even whichever marketing you'll use, no one will be able to give you that. So, for lean, we are going to touch some of the things that can bring you closer to that, or even above that, and you become exceptional. Now, what is defined as value in business? What do you call value in your business? In lean thinking, what is defined as value is what the customer pays for. That is very important, and I'm going to go deeper on that. But what is value in your business is what the customer pays for. So when you're organizing your SME, when you're organizing the processes that you're going through, you have to ask yourself, this thing that I'm doing, is the customer willing to add me a single shilling if I kept on doing this? You understand? After roasting the beans, and you put in that black, you guys usually use that black, or like the brown bag that you usually use. Will the customer pay you an extra shilling if you made that package blue and you looked for the blue package? How many of you think the customer will add you more money if you use the blue packaging or a purple packaging? Yeah? None of us. Yeah? But the answer is not objective, it is subjective. If it is Mother's Day, someone might add you if you did a purple packaging or pink. Yeah? For that coffee. You understand? But what is defined as value is what the customer pays for. Yes? It's the same thing, the same concept she was taking you through, where she was telling you about when she told you to translate. Yeah? What was it? When she was telling you to translate that what you are bringing is that what they've asked for. You understand? So most of us, you find that we keep on doing, and this is the thing with entrepreneurs. Because first of all, as an entrepreneur, you're not first of all a businessman. You're just a person in love with your product. You understand? So for you, with your product, you fidget with it, you filter 3 times, you do what, all those things. The customer is not adding you more money for that, what you're doing. Yeah? So the customer, it may be good, but the customer is not seeing value to give you money for what you're doing. So we categorize, there are 3 categories of work. The first ones are what we call value adding activities. Yeah? For example, let's say like roasting. Yeah? Roasting is a value adding activity in your process. You understand? Now, I want you guys to engage with me. Beyond the value adding, we have what we call the non-value adding. Yeah? Now, for the non-value adding, you may not be adding value on, let's say, the coffee itself. Let's say we are using an example of ground coffee. You may not be adding value on the ground coffee itself, but it is a necessary step. You understand? Like maybe, let's say maybe cleaning the roaster. Yeah? You're not necessarily adding coffee on the ground, value on the ground coffee itself, but it is a necessary step so that you bring out a good product. Yeah? Then, of course, the last one is what we call waste. Yeah? Waste, for it at this point, these are activities that add no value. They add no value and are not needed at all. The customer pays nothing for them. They only add a cost. Yeah? For example, in coffee, if you're doing, there's the point at which where when you're doing resorting, the customer is not going to add you money for that. Yeah? The first time you're removing the primary, let's say when you're doing the first sorting, you're removing the stones, the what, you're adding value. Yeah? The second time, maybe you're being sure. Yeah? But now for you, if we come to you and you say, me, I sort my coffee 6 times, will the customer add you money because you sort your coffee 6 times? You understand? They will not add you money. You understand? So, some of these things you've been doing, but what we are doing today is to give you a structure to what you've been doing. Yeah? So that now when you're building standard operating procedures that you was talking about for your company, you write an SOP and say that for us here, we sort coffee at least maybe 2 or 3 times. Yeah? Beyond that, you're wasting time. So, value adding, non-value adding, and the waste. For example, an example of the non-value adding, we define them as activities the customer does not pay for, but they are needed, for example, in the method you're using to produce the product, or they are needed because of regulation or because of safety. Yeah? Now, when you come for this non-value adding, you're supposed to minimize. You understand? You're supposed to minimize how much you can work with this. For example, it is only up until a certain point that a customer will be able to pay you money because you have so many certifications. You understand? For example, in Mbale here, you may find that a guy who has Rainforest Alliance and the one who has UNBS and the one who doesn't have UNBS, their coffee pack may not fall out of range when we come to price. Am I right? You understand? So, if you move that in the context of Uganda, or in the context of how many certifications do you need to chase? You understand? Maybe you need to first talk to I don't know, my chairman, or talk to Steve and ask him, do I need to get rainforest? Okay, he tells you, no, instead of getting rainforest, start with this one. Which market do you want to go to? No, this is what you need for that side. There are countries where to export the UNBS is enough. You understand? And you're not doing maybe a lot of volumes that you need to be all over the place. You understand? Yeah? For example, I know, is it the UK? The UK allows the UNBS when you're exporting there. Yeah? So, it is up to you as the SME. Do you first spend money in chasing rainforest? Or you first get UNBS, and then you can export even to the UK. Yeah? With the addition of the SPS. So there are kind of 8 wastes that are defined in lean management. The first one, you tell me some of these. Which one do you have? The first one is what we call defects. Now, the short form for the 8 wastes in lean management is you can shorten them as downtime, and each letter stands for one of the wastes. The first one is called defects. Yeah? Defects in coffee. These are wastes. Yeah? For example, you've bought beans that are moldy, that are poorly sorted. The guy gives you 100 kilograms of coffee, but 15 kilograms are stones. Yeah, even if 3, by the way. Yeah, that's already waste in your process. Now, this one I know many of you are familiar with it, right? Now, the next one is overproduction. Yeah, overproduction. For example, hauling more orders than needed. And this is a very big thing with entrepreneurs who are starting. Yeah? Money for entrepreneurs dies in 2 ways. 2 like this. It dies in inventory, and a thing called consignment. Not so. Anyway, it dies in inventory and debtors. You understand? Bobanja and the things that are in the store. That's where your money dies. So you find someone, they tell, and I don't know the thing with entrepreneurs. We like supermarkets. I don't know why we like them. When you're starting out, be like, my aim is to go to this supermarket and I be there. Be like, why I'm in Carrefour? You're like, okay, you're in Carrefour. When are they paying you your money? They said next month. Between now and next month, what are you spending? What are you spending to run your process? You understand? And these supermarkets, and if you to look at the way supermarket works, they actually took the opposite of these retail shops of ours. Because the retail shops of ours, what we used to do, you go, you tell the woman, mommy has sent me, and they give you food. Before you know it, the supermarket, the thing is falling because now the people of Mami has sent me has crossed over 100. The guy has no money to buy stock. Supermarket, and even when you have the money to go to that shop, you will bargain. Yeah? Sugar is at maybe this, you understand? The supermarket said, no. There is no bargaining. And when you bring it to suppliers, we don't pay you. But the retail shop, the guy buys, he pays, then for you begin taking for practically free. Yeah? So overproduction is one of that. You need to know in a month how many kilograms do you process that usually take you. For example, maybe for all the supply, your distribution networks that you go to, you usually maybe only supply maybe 40 kilograms a month, yeah, of ground coffee. Why are you producing 100? Why? You understand? That is producing more than you need on the market. But you need systems in place to know how much you need. Yeah? So these are two. That's the second waste. How many of us are familiar with the second one? The second waste, overproduction. Yeah, these are very good entrepreneurs. Very good ones. Okay, only Steve. Steve is the honest one. Okay, the third one is called waiting. Waiting is also a waste. So, this is, for example, workers who are idle while one machine runs. You have a production line of 3 workers, but when one worker is roasting, the others are waiting for him to finish what? Roasting. You understand? So you have to begin saying, okay, when they are doing the roasting, you should be cutting the labels. You understand? You need to begin organizing. And you realize now, like many of your business owners, there are workers who are very good at this one. They are very good at hiding. You may think they are busy, but they are just there doing nothing. You understand? And the other thing is that because many of us do not take these things intentionally, our workers, they know us. Yeah? They know when Madame Gundi comes, this is what she looks for. You understand? So the day you are coming, they make sure what you're looking for is in place. You want to check on the register, you want to check on those, you will find. It is after 3 months when you realize that they've been taking some sacks from a door you never knew that is on your building. Anyway, the next one is called non-utilized talent. That is the fourth type of waste in our enterprises. Non-utilized talent. Workers' ideas are never asked for. Skills are never, then skills that are left unused from our workers or our colleagues. Yeah? For example, maybe one of your workers is very good at maybe presenting. Yeah? They have good oratory skills. You understand? But for you, every pitch, you are the one who wants to go. Every training, you are the one who wants to go. You know, when I was starting out, I used to ask myself, why do these rich people, okay, not rich people, serious business people, why do they reach a point and they have personal assistants? And they usually have a personal assistant and a secretary. Not so? Now, how many of you are business owners? How many of you are business owners? The business owners. Yeah? Now, you're the business owner. You are here. In this moment, you are here. Who is at your company being you? You understand? You're supposed to have someone. Of course, now, I understand you have to balance between trust issues. They may steal my business, those things. Yeah? But there is someone, and this thing you do it, you always have friends who will always be like, I'll come and say, Robert told me this thing. Yeah? And you'll be like, Robert can't say such a thing. Like, you know him that much. You understand? There's someone who is supposed to be in your business that when you're in the mountains looking for coffee and an investor comes, you don't panic. You understand? All of a sudden, now you have to jump on a border from inside there because the investor has told you, I'm in Kamonkoli. You understand? Yeah? And you run, you rage. Yeah? You remove that basin, remove it. You understand? You need to have someone who's at least 50% of what you are. You understand? This is why you need to do capacity building for your other, because, guys, business, some of the solutions, I'm an entrepreneur myself. Now, some of the, when you're small, you think your main problem is money. Even some of the things I'm telling you won't listen. You're like, this one. Eh? You think it is money. But as I've gone on, I've realized the only way to help you understand that is not your problem is by you getting money. That's when you realize money is not your problem. Because for you think, the 10,000 that is getting out of your business right now, when you get 100 million, you will be able to get that 10,000. But that same leak is done that will be taking out 500,000 a day. So that one, money is part of the problems, but it is not the whole problem. Yes? Some of the things we are telling you is where you start from. Non-utilized talent. The next one is transport. It's also another waste. For example, moving bags back and forth between stores for no reason. Yeah? You need now to know your process. Map out your whole process. Yeah? When we get the beans from this person, when we buy them, where do they come first? You understand? Do they need to come to the last place where they are going to now begin processing them from? Do I need, do I pay for the, if you trust the supplier per se, do I pay for the supply and I leave the coffee there? Do I move it to a middle place? You have now to begin balancing. Yeah? Not these things where they bring the coffee, they first take it to Muhammad, he keeps it for you in the store, eh? Then they take it to Prosper, then finally it reaches you. All that point you're paying, and you know the money you spend in borders. You pay 2,000 there, 3,000 there, you pay some 3K there. Eh? In total, just to transport the coffee, you spent like 10,000. But each pack of coffee you're selling at 5,000 or 9,000. Where's the profit you are making? You understand? Yeah? So that is one thing, transport. The next one, like I told you, is inventory. If you need to produce only 30 kilograms, produce 30 or 32. Yeah? Put a contingency, but do not just be producing. You understand? Produce what is enough. Begin mapping out. Usually, what do these guys ask me for? Yeah? Who are my main suppliers? The top may be 10, who I know, I'm sure every month they will buy from me. Yeah? That's on inventory. The next one is on motion. Motion, this is usually in the processing room itself. Eh? Things like, now some of you are going to think this is things like walking across the yard looking for tools, bending, searching, looking for files. Many of you, if you've like supplied to those other companies or what, and they send you to the office so that they process your money. Eh? And then the person at the front desk has to look for someone who is the secretary down. Eh? Then you sit there waiting. You understand? That is all wastage you are doing. Because time is money. Time is money. The next one is extra processing. This is, for example, many of you when you're doing documentation, many of you have duplicate records. Yeah? The sorting roster has the same information with the list that is supposed when people have brought it. You understand? You need to begin optimizing. You don't need to have very many pages of papers that all these are my records. You understand? When they tell you where are your records, you remove a blue book. Put. Yeah? They ask you remove another book. And usually for businesses, the blue book even doesn't get done. When a new manager comes, he buys another book. They start Bopia. You understand? Yeah? So these are the main 8 wastes of SMEs that you'll need to look through. Where does the waste hide? You need now to begin mapping out your process. For example, follow 1 bag of cherry from reception to store. How many times has it been moved? Has it set down? Has it been waited on? Has it touched twice unnecessarily? Time is quality every hour. The cherry waits before processing, quality drops, and defects rise. Now, the thing on this other one, the first one, usually what happens is, as an entrepreneur, the resources are not many. But now you guys, you go and you corporatize yourselves very fast. Now, you pay people by the month. You understand? They arrive at 8 up to 5. You understand? But between 8 to 5, effectively, they work for like 3 hours. You understand? The rest of the time they are doing TikTok, doing what? Pretending to be busy. You understand? And if you look at a person like Mbale, the guy of CJs, Cafe Javas, his workers do not work full day. Most of his workers work, is it about 6 hours? He has like, is it 3 shifts in that day? You understand? So this guy comes to you with a value proposition of, no, you can work for me from 8 to 4, then you go do your other things. But for those 4 hours that you report, do the work. You understand? Yeah? And of course, that has implications on how you pay them. Yeah? Someone is more willing to be, they feel like it's part-time. You understand? Yeah? But that only works if you've mapped out how your process works. That when someone arrives at 8, they begin with this, then this, then this, then this. You understand? So that's one thing that you're going to have to look at. Then ask the people who are on the front line, the people who are doing the processes. You realize that in most of the coaching we are doing, you find that we always have to sit down with some of your workers, or if not, you're the business person yourself, so that we understand where are the problems, what do we solve for, because the person usually doing the process usually has the best solution. You understand? Do not do consultancies like for big companies, where they bring someone who knows nothing about coffee and is done giving you solutions on how to solve your coffee problems. Yes? Yes, they may have the technical expertise, but they need also your input. And secondly, if that happens and someone is just giving you solutions that you've not contributed, what happens is that once that person has left, because you did not own the process, you're not going to do what he has told you. You understand? And now, some of us, it's worse. The boss sends you to use someone you don't know. You understand? So for your work is to follow. The guy asks you, bring these papers, you give him. He does his papers. He sends back to the boss. The boss reads, he says, you do this. Now also the boss, you're facing problems with your workers. They don't know why you're telling them to do things. You understand? So begin owning the process. The next steps we are going to touch when you're organizing, these are very simple steps. They're called the 5S. These are the beginnings. These are the foundational touches of lean thinking. This is the foundational baseline that we are laying. Yeah? For example, I'm going to give you an example that I use very, very many times, that many of you have heard me use. Back then when ATMs had just come, yeah? In lean thinking, there's a concept called foolproofing. Like when you're designing something, you need to design it so that even a stupid person cannot fail. You understand? When you're designing things, always have that at the back of your mind. For example, the USB that you plug in here, you cannot plug in the USB the wrong way. You understand? Because when you try the wrong way, it doesn't work. It doesn't even give you the chance to fail. You understand? So in the beginning, when they're designing ATM machines, they used to design ATMs, and people used to forget their ATM cards a lot. Because the ATM at the time back then, it used to first give you the money. You understand? So the guy has gotten the money, just does shoo, shoo, border, goes pays school fees or the coffee. Yeah? You understand? But if you realize the modern ATMs, what do they give you first? They give you your card back before they give you the money. They give you the card, then they give you the money. What do they forget mostly? The receipt. You understand? That is one concept that what they use. That is foolproofing. We build it so that you can't forget your ATM, even if you want. At least let it come out, and you leave it there. And if you don't pull it out, usually the money doesn't even come out. You understand? So when you're building systems for your places, you need to put some of these concepts in what? In place. It's the same concept with cars. When you're doing reverse, why they added now the sonar, you hear that thing beeping when you're approaching a what? And the more you approach it, makes more noise, those things. Those are all concepts they are trying to make sure they make the car very safe for you. So the first step, when you're organizing your coffee factory, it's called sorting. Yeah? And when you're doing sorting, you want to remove what is not needed from the workspace. Yeah? For example, broken tools, old sacks, expired chemicals. Remove those things from the front. Yeah? Things that you only use once, every few times. Yeah? Put them somewhere. Let them not be like the things you use every day. Yeah? The next S, there are 5 S's. The next S is sort in order. Yeah? For example, develop a place for everything and put everything in its place. For example, label the stores, what she was telling, I think it was Kate, yeah? Toilets, ladies, gentlemen. Imagine if those things never used to have ladies, gentlemen. Eh? The amount of sorries you would be saying in a day. Eh? Yeah, sorry. You go back. You understand? So, please put labels. Authorized staff only. Maybe store, those things. Just simple labels. And you don't need to go and now go to NAS and they make for you the plastic thing. No. Write it on a what? On a piece of paper. Get a sellotape that is the transparent one, the big one. And do at once and leave it there. It is a label. It works. Yeah? You don't need to go and do very expensive things. The next one is shine. So this is about cleaning. Yeah? Clean and inspect. And usually, I don't know why, when you're having people coming to your facility, is when you see something you have not been seeing every day. You understand? Like, the guy will come, hey, thank you. Hey, we are happy to see you, Mr. Idiot from Kwal. As you turn like this, in the corner, you see a bucket of dirty water. You're like, you understand? Then now you have to begin speaking using your eyes. Yeah? Joel. You understand? And you expect Joel to pick up on the idea. You understand? Eh? You say, Joel. Now, if Joel is also not a bright person, yeah? You know those people you tell, again, you're whispering, but again for them they are shouting. So, you need to begin thinking these things before. You understand? You begin to, for example, when I was doing, one time when doing a UNBS audit, later on we had a guy come to teach us something about quality, and he used to work for Coca-Cola and what. He had a very big CV. He told us, there are things that are just mental. And I've shared this with people like Steve. When UNBS guys are coming to audit you, or any visitors, you understand? Have a visitor's book. You understand? It is the first sign of you being serious about your business. Have a visitor's book. You understand? But then secondly, when they are coming into the production facilities, the problem with the entrepreneurs, we like showing off. The production facility is not for everyone. Understand? But for you, as long as the guys come, so long as they come with a double cabin and what, you say, I have to show them my machines. You understand? So, and even your workers, if you've not communicated well, you the owner, you might know. You understand? But the workers, for them, they don't know. So they only see the only big thing they can show in the facility. You understand? No. If they need to go into the production facility, have a what? A form. You understand? Declaring you don't have Ebola, malaria, those things are mental. When someone comes to your facility and you have those things in place, they know they're dealing with a serious person. You understand? Simple things, they don't cost a lot. And this is why you use the unutilized talent. If you have those Gen Zs in your company, they can do for you these things. Free of charge, they do for you a form, they do for you what? You understand? They can do for you these things. Then the last one is standardizing. Yeah? So for standardizing, after you have done everything from sort, set in order, and shine, yeah? You have to begin standardizing how you do things. You understand? That for us, when we are cleaning the facility, we clean it on every Wednesday and Thursday. Understand? We have a checklist of who cleans. You understand? And then when we are cleaning, we start with the floors. Then we start with this. Then we go to this. Then we go to this. If not that, you'll hire a cleaner. He will first clean the toilet, then clean your production room. You understand? There is an inherent order you're supposed to do things. Yeah? That you have to be knowing yourselves because you're the owners of the what? The process. The next one, number 5, is what we call sustain. Sustain, after you've standardized things now have to be working. They have to be put in place. You understand? Once you've developed the SOP, how do we make it practical now? Yeah? Usually what I do with my SMEs that I work with, after doing the SOP, develop a working form. Yeah? Either make it a Google form, make it a Jot form, something that when the guy is done cleaning, with his phone he just scans and he begins doing what? inputting form, the information, and that information comes to Google Drive, which you have access to. Even when you've not slept at the SME that day, you can check the Google form and say today they cleaned. You understand? You're starting to build a what? A working system. So these are the 5 S's. Sort, set in order, shine, standardize, sustain. Okay. The conversation we had about value is, these are just examples of some of the conversations of how the most everyday use products we have right now are doing the purpose they were not intended for. If you look at something like M-Pesa, how many of you know M-Pesa? The thing that is very common in Kenya, I think even parts of this side. Yeah? M-Pesa was not originally made for what? For like sending money. Yeah? It was made for people who, they wanted people to pay back their loans. You understand? From those circles and where. Yeah? But when you do something and the customer calls your product a different thing, so long as they are paying for it, that's what I told you, value. Value is what the customer pays for. You may have your different opinions, it is okay. We shall wait for you when they're asking you for the balance sheet or the bank statement. You understand? Yeah? Value is what the customer pays for.